He's pretty steady, throughout that, which I know, I appreciate from afar as a coach. I think that, he put a lot of responsibility on himself, which I think that's what you're looking for in that position. And he's able to, stand up on a daily basis of a team that we obviously know we haven't won enough games and we haven't really performed well, but he's able to stand out there and be consistent, in taking that. And it's probably a lot tougher for people maybe on the outside to understand what's that like, every day. People, hitting you with those questions, why aren't you playing well? Why aren't you doing this? But, knowing Blake, he's highly competitive. I'm sure that, it's a point of the season now where we're not allowed to talk to them about football or know what they're doing or keep track of them. But, knowing Blake, I'm sure he's working extremely hard to come back and do the best job he can for our team.
And I know you don't really want to talk about what you say to players until you talk to the players, but will it be important when you first talk to him when he comes back? Will that be an important conversation just to set a tone?
Well, I think, the relationship, people always talk about the relationship with the head coach and quarterback, and people say, well, it's the most important one. And I know that it's important, but really the relationship with everyone on your team is important. I think, for us, we'll set some goals. Obviously we come back in phase one. For us, the goal will be, hey, make sure let's make sure we're in shape, make sure we understand. Obviously, schematically, both offensively, defensively, and special teams will be quite different for our players. So we just want to make sure that they're getting in shape, they understand the system, they know what's expected of them. This way, by the time we go to preseason camp, or training camp, they know exactly what to do, and they're able to compete for a job.
And to you, no question, he's the guy for this franchise going into this season. I mean, people always ask.
Yeah, Ben, people ask all the time, like, hey, what? I always tell people the same thing. I think, Tom said it best, the first press conference. He's our quarterback. I mean, no different than, some other positions. This person's our our center, our left tackle, our corner, or, and things of that nature, because, you go out there every day and you have to, the players know you have to go out there and earn the respect of your teammates, but also earn a roster spot. And, we as coaches have to make a decision of putting the best players out there that give us the best chance to win.
It is interesting, though, that you've created competition almost at every position except that.
Well, I mean, we have three players there right now. I think that, a lot of people haven't seen Brandon Allen. I think a lot of people have seen Chad. Obviously, he's been around. But, there is competition there. And, whether you add more competition or not add more competition, I think it's always out there. I think, for players, I think on the outside, the players that you want are the players that compete against themselves. You know what I'm saying? The players that, they're self-motivators. They go out there. They're not really concerned about who's around them. Mm-hmm. They want to be the best. Those are the kind you want. But, you're right. I mean, obviously there are some players that are like that, tend to, when you let's wake them up, put somebody there. I don't think, for us, all three quarterbacks, I don't see them, feeling. I don't think anyone on our team has any feeling of really ease, with what we've done so far.
Yeah, if you spend any time with Blake, you realize he puts more pressure on himself than anybody could put.
He does, and I think that's something that's, it's a quality that you appreciate as a coach and a teammate. But it's one, as a coach, that sometimes you have to manage. When does it get to a point where it's too much? And sometimes that'll occur during, I know I've seen it sometimes during a game where, you're just trying to make a play after play after play. And, I think sometimes you have to be, smart and have to be able to, check the ball down. I know that, I've talked to him about that in the last 2 weeks because you're right. He does put a lot of pressure on himself to always make a play. And, sometimes those plays aren't there, and you need to just be smart.
Did you approach him differently in the last 2 weeks? Did you have a conversation, hey, I want you to approach it this way? Because he seemed to, I don't know if it was relaxed, but played better in those last couple of games.
Well, I think, I tend to talk to the quarterback quite a bit about situations, situational football, and kind of what we talked about just a minute ago of, listen, everyone's going to, wait for you or look for you to make the big play, keep going. Here are our plays. This is what we're looking for, and try to give the quarterback an overall concept of, hey, listen, when we call this play, we're looking for this. If that's available to us, let's go ahead and take it. But if it's not, let's not stay on it long enough. Let's put it in our back pocket, save that call for another day, take the check down, let's get the completion, let's get the 4 or 5 yards, and let's go. So I think, the last 2 weeks, trying to increase the repetitions in practice, just for a standpoint of feeling comfortable and confident, and then from a standpoint of situationally, what we've talked to them about, how we want them to go about it, what we were looking to do, and whether it's the different third down situations, the different red zone situations. I think when you have that communication, a better understanding of what we're looking for, I think it gives any player, the opportunity to go out there and do a better job. So we're going to try to, you never start where you left off, but we'll start from, the ground floor and try to build that foundation through, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then obviously training camp for us will be more situational work than obviously in this off-season phase.
We had a chance to talk to Shad yesterday, and he said, it was fascinating for him to meet Tom, to talk with you and Dave, to be able to put the three of you together because of the personalities that you have. He feels like it would work. Is your previous relationship with Tom and the respect that you have for him allowing this whole kind of new structure to work?
I don't know if it's like when you say allowed, to make this thing work. I know that from when I was a very young coach that I always looked up to Coach Koffler. Obviously, by the stories that I said, I tried to get a job with him, and I guess he didn't want me then, so he stuck with me now, which I always try to tell him. But for me, when I did start to build a relationship with him when I was at Syracuse, I relied on him quite a bit, from a standpoint of culture, philosophy, situations, dealing with coaches, dealing with players. So we had some really good in-depth discussions without a partnership. So for me, he's helped me grow so much as a coach, and then when I became the head coach of Buffalo, that continued. So, for me, when I found out, which I found out the same day that I was offered the job, that Coach Coughlin was going to be there, I couldn't have been more excited, because I think that, obviously, for me personally, people that I have great respect for, people that I admire, and then obviously the way we're set from a standpoint of philosophy, it's just a great fit. And for me, I've told, my friends, my colleagues around the league, I said, listen, I know that, I'm the head coach and I'm going to run this team, but I have the greatest situation in the world. I have someone that I respect, that's done it, that knows what it should look like, that's aligned with me philosophically. And like I tell Coach all the time, I said, by the time you're done with me, I will have sucked every bit of information out of your brain. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm like a sponge, and I do. I don't, if I have something that's weighing on my mind, or something I want to know, I'm trying to decide what's the best way to go about a practice schedule or a meeting time. I mean, to walk, 10 feet into someone's office and get his opinion on what it should be, how we should do it. And, checking with him to make sure that, hey, is there a better way we can do this? And that's just from the football end. And, Dave's part of it from the personnel side. And I think that's the unique relationship that, there aren't any egos. It's a team effort. We're able to ask each other questions to get ourselves better, personally and obviously from the organization standpoint. So for me, it's been outstanding. I can't say enough about it.
in your
When
life.
you guys decided to go hard after Calais Campbell, knowing that he's in his 30s now, do you have to scrutinize that more, trying to figure out that balancing act of how much he has left and you guys are going to offer him big money obviously?
Well, I think anytime, when you look at that number, that you have to look at it, but then when you put the tape on and you watch the tape, the number doesn't equate to the tape. Meaning, here's a player that plays a large percentage of the snaps, plays extremely hard every down, hustles, runs, makes plays, things of that nature. Is a leader, obviously, on the teams that he's been on. So for us, we tend to go with the tape and what they were able to do and their production on it, and then obviously with the character of the person. So I think that, we're excited to bringing him into our organization. I know he's excited, and we're looking forward to get going.
When you look at 30-something players, do you have a certain philosophy when it comes to those guys, or do you take it?
When you say age-wise?
Yeah, just some can fall off and others can keep playing for years. And
well, yeah, I think a lot of times. I mean, when I first came into the league and I was around a lot of older scouts and older coaches, the one thing that they used to say is that, hey, always be careful if you see a guy on the ground a lot. If you see a player and he's starting to get on the ground a lot, then that's a situation that, you have to look to see how much more time he has left. So, obviously with Calais, we didn't see that at all, or any of the players that we brought in. But I think that's the one thing that sticks out in my mind when people say something about age is, hey, the more you start to see a player on the ground, the more it's probably on the back end of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it was the first day at the introductory press conference, talked about players. Maybe they should have been careful what they wished for. Some told you, hey, we want you back. And it was made to say, that this is going to be a tough situation. It's going to be a lot of work. Will they see a different coach?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you become, when you're an assistant coach and then you become a head coach and you've been a head coach before, there's just, like I said before in the last 2 weeks, there's just a lot of things. Not to say one's better than the other or any situation like that. It's just that, there are things that I'm comfortable with. There are things that, I've had success with in the training of a team. So, I think there was a little bit of a introduction to that in the last 2 weeks. I think that the players did a nice job and the way they responded, but now it's a matter of the consistency of it and going throughout. And I think last year was a little bit tough. You're taking over for obviously for Gus, and the players had a great amount of respect for him and they loved him. And then you come in a situation you're just trying to manage the last 2 weeks to be able to do a good job for the players and the assistant coaches that are there. And then now it's a situation like, okay, now listen, here's how we're doing things. This is what we do. So there are going to be things that are different, but again, it's not different from a standpoint of, hey, we think this is better, or what we did before wasn't right. It's more of, hey, this is what we believe in. This is the reason why we're doing it. This is the reason why it's going to lead us to winning more football games.
How are you moderating the culture of the team? Tom has told us that, and he's said this publicly many times, that he feels like that there needs to be more pride, more toughness, more both mental and physical toughness.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that. I think that anytime you look at a team that really hasn't won, you're gonna look. And I think that the same characteristics come up. I think, whether it's you're making mistakes, you're with penalties, with mental toughness, not being able to finish games. There's a lot of things that you can say about teams that haven't won a lot of football games, and they're probably a lot of them are the same, and a lot of them are true. Mm-hmm. So, for us, when you talk about monitoring or what we want to get done, well, the first thing we want to do is we want to create, structure. We want to create discipline. We want to, obviously people talk about physical and mental toughness a lot, but in my opinion, you got to train that. You got to put yourselves in situations. You got to create adversity, which is always something that we're looking to try to do. So, we have to overcome it both as coaches and as players. I always believe one thing about this league is that you have to outwork people. You have to outwork them, from a coaching standpoint, schematically. You have to outwork them when you have an opportunity on the field. You have to outwork them, in the weight room, and you have to come in there every day because, I tell the players the same thing. We're going to report whatever day we report. When we come in there, 31 other teams are going to be saying the same thing. So really what's going to make us different? What's going to make us a better football team? And, you have to do that. And then the other thing with the culture is just make sure everyone understands what the chain of command is, how we talk to each other, communication, and then, being consistent and not letting our level of expectation go down. I think that's the key thing, keeping a high level of expectation for what we expect from our players, from our coaches, from myself, on a daily basis. And that's, I think you just take it day by day and don't look too far ahead.
History says that when you take a head job, you're going to win a good situation to feel like you can win it.
What's that?
Your history says that when you take a head job, you're going to win a situation where you feel like you can succeed.
I felt that way. I don't know if other people have felt. No, go ahead.
Other opportunities at NJAX. You didn't have to take this job. What was it that appealed to you? It wasn't just a matter of, hey, this is a job I have to take. What was it that you thought could work here?
A lot of times for me, you get a twofold. You get a lot of people that say, hey, this is a great job because of this. And then you get some people say, hey, you better be careful. You don't want to, For me, I'll be honest. I love these types of challenges. I do. I like it when, people say, you know what, you're not going to be this or you're not going to be that, and really coach, with really a chip on your shoulder. The other thing for me, it's probably a little bit more internal, meaning that, I was an assistant coach there for 2 years, so I was able to live in the community. So, not that I'm a very friendly person, that I have a lot of friends.
Nah, you're great.
But a couple of the people that I met, through where my kids go to school and things of that nature, you sit down and like, gosh, what's wrong? Hey, we're Jags fans. Hey, and you start to see the passion, but you also start to see the disappointment, and you see that we're not. As proud as because the team hasn't performed well, and to me, I think that when we come in there as a coaching staff, when we come in there as players, we have a chance to change that, and we have to do it in a way of how the community is. The community is a hard-working group of people, that go to work every day, do what they have to do. And that's what we have to do as a football team, and we have to reflect, those people in the community that have worked hard and have earned those things. And I think, I've always tried to do that with the team, because one of the greatest experiences I had was, people say, the sport of football or the team, the team can change a community. Well, I was fortunate to be part of a team that changed the region. When I was with the New Orleans Saints, post-Katrina, I don't even think that words could even do justice to really what it was like, when we first had gotten down there, to the city, the region. And then I always tell people, so we come back in, I thought that, Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton did a great job. We as coaches, we went out in the community and really did do community building service. Like, in other words, I remember back there whacking weeds and clearing things out and being a part of that. And then as we were progressing as a football team, the city was building itself also, and I think the climax of all of it, or hey, we arrived part, really started with that first game in the Superdome, and it's been documented now. Gleason blocks the punt, and but there was no doubt. I'll never forget when we were getting ready to kick off, and usually I'm focused in on what's going to happen. I remember I turned around and looked in the stands, and people were literally crying. And that's when I started to realize the type of effect, you know what I'm saying, football can have on a community or a region. And I'm not going to compare our situation to what happened in New Orleans, but I am going to say that, you know, I want to be able to go out there, and we all do, and want a team that's going to win football games where, you know, our fans can wear, you know, a Jaguar logo and feel proud of the team that they're supporting.
It's interesting that you recognize that, because from 95 to about probably 2000, John was here, 2002, 2001, the team itself, the kind of, and you'll find, as much as people talk about offense, people in Jacksonville love defense, right? I mean, they get crazy about it. Because, like you said, it's a hard-working, you know, passionate kind of blue-collar community. So it's interesting that you've recognized that the team should reflect that.
Absolutely.
And you've recognized that just in the 2 years that you lived there.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I don't want to get... Should I mention some names and give credit to the people that have told me that? They would be all fired up. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not talking about people around the building. I think you get a great sense.
Like your neighbors, right?
Well, yeah. My neighbors, meanwhile, I saw my one neighbor the other day. This is hilarious. So he goes, now, I met him when I first moved in, and I have had, so I've been there for 2 years, and the other day was the third time I've ever seen him. He's like, do you even live here? Yeah. No, well,
never trust your neighbors.
No, I love my neighbors, but I feel bad all the time. You know, it's more like my kids where they go to school and the parents there. You know, they always, you know, my son's friends, they want to know everything. You know, you talk about being prepared for reporters. Try going in front of a bunch of, you know, 13-year-old kids, you know, and they want to know, what are we doing? Why aren't we going after this person? Why aren't we taking this guy? You know, yeah. Oh, it's unbelievable. And you know, my son's like, "What are we doing, Dad? What are we doing?" And I'm like, yeah, even my daughters get involved and stuff like that. So it's like, go listen. Dad, do you know? And then my wife, do you know what you're doing? Are you sure you know? I'm like, listen, we got this under control. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. We're taking steps here, and let's not get crazy. But they drill me now. You know, especially, and it's interesting because, you know, it's coming from places where the franchises have been there longer, you know what I'm saying? It's interesting, you know, these kids now, you know, I'm telling you now, these 13-year-old kids I'm around, I tell them all the time, I go, hey, listen, you guys, you need to be a general manager. You need to be a head coach. You know, I tell them right off the bat. They're like, yeah, we should be that. We should be that.
Nothing humbles you quicker than your own children.
You know what's great about them? There's no... there's no governor on them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it come right out. They're like, Coach, like my son's friends, Coach, what are we doing with that? I mean, you know, and then then you get a little, like, cynical. Like, I start thinking, is that kid's dad saying that stuff to him? Because if his dad's saying that stuff to him, his dad should come to me and say it. You know, he doesn't need to send his kid, you know, but it's not. It's pure joy. So that's the stuff that's fun.